Well, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the EKN and Arise webinar. We appreciate you joining. We've given a little bit of time for folks to join after the top of the hour, but we're expecting more folks to trickle in over the next 10 minutes. But let's go ahead and get started so we preserve some time for discussion. My name is Tad Wilson. I'm Vice President for Retail and E-commerce at Arise, and I've got a couple of introductory charts and some housekeeping details to go through before we get to the meat of the presentation. So thanks to everyone for joining. I look forward to a good discussion. So what is Arise? You're probably wondering, why are we hosting this webinar? I'll give you a simple analogy. The way Uber offers a platform that connects drivers with riders, Arise offers a platform that connects customer service professionals with brands that need to serve their own customers. We're 100% virtual, 100% onshore, 100% contract-based, so a very flexible model. Happy to talk more afterwards about what we can do, but just want to give you an introduction about who's hosting the party. Our value, quality, source without geographic limitations, lots of flexibility, 20 to 40% on-demand flex, drives lower TCO and high security. So just a little bit about us. Now, why does this matter? As we all know, shopping and retail are challenging. Think about the past, the good old days. Black Friday was just Friday. And e-com comes on the scene, stores start opening early, we get Cyber Monday. Then it becomes Black 5 Day. Now we have Peak Week, where mobile shopping peaks on Wednesday and it goes all the way through next Cyber Monday. And if you've checked your inbox lately, you probably see the cyber deals are being held over even into this week. The win of shopping is challenging. Now, over that Black Friday weekend, 108 million shoppers in the US alone went shopping. That would make it the 12th largest country in the world, just behind the Philippines. You add in the rest of the world, it's enormous. 24/7 expectation of service, anywhere, any device, and at the same time, PSFK Labs, so smart folks that don't care a lick about technology, tell us that 83% of people want to talk with a human when they're solving a challenge. So flexibility is the name of the game. So what are we going to listen to and hear today? We're very lucky to have Sahir Anand with us, who's a retail veteran, executive, and analyst from EKN Research. Now, Sahir is a VP and principal analyst at EKN, but his background is very, very deep beyond research. He led Aberdeen's retail practice. He was a marketing executive at a software startup in the CP and fast-moving consumer goods space. He serves on numerous boards, and most importantly, perhaps, he has experience as a retail veteran. He's been in the retail trenches as a manager and leader at a Fortune 150 retailer. So we're very lucky to have Sahir with us. What to listen for? One, the consumer reality is there are no channels, just brands. Our consumers want to interact, plain and simple. The business reality, we have to be everywhere, but be profitable. Friction, it's real, it's expensive, and it's growing fast. And then finally, for folks that have a specific interest in customer experience and care, look for the things around immediate response to customers, which executives have called out as the #1 CX improvement opportunity, or some of the tech-human hybrids, such as hybrid contact centers, which in EKN's research click in at #4 in disruptive tech, and also sources of customer feedback. One of the themes that Sahir is going to hit on is we're actually cutting ourselves off from real feedback, and that's a mistake for brands. The last point I would say, enjoy the discussion. If there are questions or things that you want answered, pop them into the chat window. We'll hit them as best we can, and let's make this interactive. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sahir.
Thank you, Ed, and thanks to everyone for joining. So who is EKN? So EKN stands for Executive Knowledge Network. We are a peer network of really formed through retailers, by the retailers. We have a very interesting advisory council of retailers, both line of business and IT. It can be more than one person from a retailer who can join our advisory council on an opt-in basis. And it's all about sharing best practices and talking about innovation, what are the different pain points that companies are facing, and how they're trying to solve it. A lot of the representation that you're seeing on the screen is representative of some of these companies. There are many more that have been part of our peer network, and we conduct research basis on the advice from our peer network, and then whatever help they need, we provide the insights and the data, as well as the research that we conduct to these companies. So in creating the omnichannel vision, where are companies today, right? Let's talk about where we are today and where we've come from. We've come through a massive cycle of change in retail, and this transformation has not just happened overnight. It's taken a lot of exponential change in not just the consumer behavior and how retailers have evolved, but it's also taken sizable investments. So you think about the 15th century, early 16th century, when we started to see the concept of bazaars and local market squares, where we saw a lot of the barter trading and actual first currency-based trades that came a little bit at the same time and perhaps later. After that, the advent of organized retail, so the mom and pop shops, right? The mom and pop stores that came about in the early 1900s, about the same time when customer loyalty programs were introduced through, believe it or not, through stamps to offer loyalty-related benefits to customers at these type mom and pop stores and other type of department stores that came out at the same time. And then we led to this whole mass communications age, right? From the early 1900s to the coming to the mid 60s, right? Where you saw shopping evolve as an experience, the advent of malls and the consolidation of big box format stores, which perhaps there was a similar pattern happening in Europe with hypermarkets in terms of the emergence of hypermarkets and similar big box stores. But big box has really been defined through North America, especially the US and Canada, but especially the US, because big box is a very unique concept which requires a very different type of retail planning, cost optimization, supply chain. And then we saw the advent of the phase of digital expansion coming from the 1970s onwards to 2005. We saw the advent of the World Wide Web in the mid-90s. We saw the dot-com bust. We saw the 2000s where we finally started to see social networking emerge, the era of personalization and portability with social media, smartphones in the mid 2000s, as well as the app economy. And now looking back, you think about how we started to talk about apps as essentially microcosms of software in your hands as a consumer. And now there are apps galore everywhere for everything that you can think about, from your life's requirements or your lifestyle, your preferences. Everything is really covered in that space. And finally, we are now in the era of what we call here at EKN and through our advisory council of retailers, the democratization of retail. This is the era which we believe is going to be the most game-changing as far as the evolution of and the impact that consumers are going to have on retailers and vice versa, where there is a confluence of messaging platforms, connected devices, AR, VR, virtual reality, mixed reality, the advent of share bots and machine learning, artificial intelligence, and also the applications related to 3D, i.e. product development and real-time production of retail articles and products. And not to mention robotics. Robotics has gone through its phases. It's finally coming into its own. in the supply chain in many retail applications, including finding space in stores, believe it or not, for inventory management. And then we can go on and on talking about drones. But I think what's really important to take away over here is, despite the fact that we've seen this massive evolution in the way that retailing has evolved, and with retail, the consumer good companies who evolved their products, we still have a lot to do in terms of removing friction and really understanding that despite the fact that we have omni everything, that means we have omnichannel, which is an accepted form of commerce for consumers who do not look at channels. They don't look at channels. They look at the retailer. They look at the product. They look at the service, right? So we have omni everything from the retailer's perspective, omni everything from the consumer perspective, and we still find that there are some significant challenges, some significant points of friction where retailers must remove these points of friction, such as in our research, what has been indicated over and over again, that inventory visibility, believe it or not, after years of research in how to reduce out of stock, it is still $1 trillion problem in retail and consumer goods. It's still a massive issue across channels to provide real-time visibility towards on-hand inventory, in-transit inventory, which store holds what inventory, which channel holds what inventory. And it's not just a channel issue, it's a retailer and trading partner issue, i.e. the consumer good companies, the suppliers. Everyone needs real-time visibility, and we are far from it. So that seems to be the number one point of friction. Number two is the technology integration across channels. Still a lot to be desired. When it comes to the web channel working with stores and with digital, i.e. Social commerce and mobile commerce, there's a lot to be desired in terms of having one view of customer data, having one view of product information, having one view of analytics, and one view of orders. When you think about omni everything, those are all components that are very important. And the only other one which I'll mention here, which is important to think about, is organizational readiness. As we think about omni everything and frictionless commerce, and if this is the age of democratization of retail, it is imperative that organizations rethink the structure within which omni-channel functions. I have spoken to so many retailers, so many top 50 retailers in the last couple of years, and there's not a single voice that disagrees that omni-channel as an organizational strategy is disparate. There's so many companies that Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies that have established organizational hierarchy for omnichannel and have failed at it. Sometimes you put the omnichannel team under store operations. Sometimes you put them under supply chain. Sometimes under e-commerce, and sometimes they're operating independently. There is no right rule that works there. But this is a team that needs to find its place or needs to make way for someone else. So it's quite frustrating for a lot of executives in retail. The other point which I want to make is, why is it that consumers feel now, more than ever before, that it's not just about your store? The store actually is in the world of the consumer, right? The new order is that you don't need to go to a store. It's not a requirement. So you build a store and they will come, you put merchandise and they will come. Those notions, those adages are now somewhat redundant. I would not say that it is completely redundant, because there are still a lot of articles, a lot of products for which you need to go into the stores. One good example is grocery, which is predominantly store-centric still. Even for millennials, out there. But the notion that for a majority of retail categories, that the store is in the world of the consumer. That means they have the essence of the complete control on the buying behavior and the buying process, right? The journey, as we call it, the 5-step process. That means when you think about a typical purchase, the consumer has already researched and discovered all the online and offsite channels, or most of the online and offsite channels, even before they begin their journey in the store. The transaction has to be seamlessly embedded across channels, and the retailer interaction has to be synchronized with real-time product, pricing, and inventory data, online as well as offsite in the store. And where commerce has really this inflection point for commerce, which is really important to understand, that there are, when you think about commerce, it's about the store point of sale, it's about social commerce, and it's about online commerce. Where it has hit an inflection point is that everywhere, almost everywhere, e-commerce, m-commerce has seen a phase where you can actually put a number against cross-channel retail sales. So if you were to think about current retail sales, and you think about store sales somewhere in the range of 4.6 trillion, 1.8 trillion in the US by 2017 is going to be attributed to cross-channel retail sales. Another key fact to take into consideration, omnichannel initiatives are by far the leading technology initiative in the store. And not even an initiative, it's a priority for half the retailers that we've surveyed at EKN. What's also interesting is that, and I was talking to Tad about this when we looked at this data together, is it's interesting that when I used to do these surveys, for 10 years I've been doing research in the space, or 10 years or more. And when I used to do these surveys on multi-channel and cross-channel retail, I used to find maybe 1 or 2 retailers as being satisfied with their omni-channel performance or with their multi-channel or cross-channel performance. Today, more than half the retailers that we survey rank themselves either good or very good when it compares to their competitors. So we've come a long ways. We've come a long ways, and that's why we say omni everything, and that everything is omni-channel today. But is it all that hunky-dory? Let's look at that. Well, on the positive side, retailers are taking a lot of action. Walmart spending billions of dollars on e-commerce and omni-channel integration. Good example is their 2-day shipping subscription service. By the way, subscription is going to be big in retail in the coming months and years. And what's also interesting is they want to take on Amazon Prime through a regional delivery service, a last mile delivery service, which is going to be very fast, quite accelerated. That's Walmart's dream, is to be able to catch up somehow. They're ways behind and they want to catch up. But they're making the right investments. Target is investing or has already invested $1.8 billion in 2016 and another couple $2 billion or more in 2017 to improve their supply chain and tech infrastructure, to focus on digital transformation and sales performance, localization, smaller store concepts. Kohl's, another great example. Kohl's launched their mobile payment system, similar to Walmart Pay, and they tried to do things differently. In a recent campaign that they launched, a video campaign, they were able to amass almost 140 million views. And this video went quickly viral and recorded to date the best social engagement for the retailer, which drove sales, which drove a lot of massive publicity. So Kohl's is doing some different things out there. This is the best example, according to me. Adore Me is a lingerie retailer, a different concept. a concept that is very focused on a particular category or a line of products within a category. What they have done is something really different. They opened their first store in Manhattan, and what they started was a concierge service, an online appointment-only service for shoppers to have a 45-minute prescriptive one-on-one meeting with the stylist for the customers, for the stylist to make personal recommendations, for the stylist to develop a relationship, a prescription, a personalized experience for the customer. And the purchases are made or placed online and then through an iPad and then shipped directly to the customer. So within this 45-minute to 1 hour time frame, you can get a lot of personalization, a lot of prescription, and the order can be placed as well. But with all these positive examples, is everything going to mean the same for all retailers? The answer is no. It's going to mean different things for different retailers. But there are three important implications that we need to think about, which are common for all retailers. The fact that innovation and innovative retail concepts will continue to attract the mind share and the wallet share from the consumer in 2020. And we need to start thinking about that, because there is this notion that it's omni everything, but there is still a lot of friction, like I said, in terms of inventory visibility and other areas. There is this notion, this agreement in amongst executives and at the board level, that the importance of transforming the store. But in many retailers, in retail headquarters, it's still believed that the stores are a different economy. They exist on a different plane, that stores are meant to execute, that they're not strategic enough. And I'm going to dispel that notion on this webinar, that they are the most strategic assets that the retailers have. It is a must-do, transforming a store. It is an engine of growth. It is, in fact, the most profitable channel for the retailer today. And we'll show some of that data to you. Data is not an exception. It's a rule for competitive advantage. And it cannot be taken lightly in how you treat big data and data science and consumer science in retail. So these are three issues that are very important for innovative retail concepts and for you to capture mind share and wallet share by 2020 and perhaps beyond. So with all these positive actions that we've spoken about, are retailers really listening to their customers? Well, let's look at that. Only half the retailers are listening to their customers today. Let's put that in context. When it comes to our research, we tried to find out, when it comes to rating omni-channel strategy performance, when you look at your omni-channel sales, your comps, your margins, how profitable is the customer? An omni-channel customer is 11.2% more profitable. They spend about 10% odd more in basket size compared to a single channel customer, right? That is proven fact. But when you assess the success of your omni-channel strategy performance, do you only assess the success in those parameters? Or do you lead with the voice of the customer? Lead with the hearts and minds of the customer? The answer to that is no. For half the retailers, it is only done occasionally when they get unfiltered feedback from customers in the form of mystery shops, CSAT, or any other methodology that's out there that's emerged. And the fact is that when I spent a lot of time in retail in the heydays, when what I call in the early 2000s up to 2008, the top 10 percentile of mystery shop and CSAT scores across leading retailers drove very high comp sales in early to mid 2000s. That's a fact. Okay, so there's a direct correlation between the voice of the customer and sales and revenue. And we in the stores were always judged based on our ability to drive mystery shops and CSATs in the positive direction. And then we just sat back and automatically saw that our results had improved, our operations were in line, and magically everything turned out right. And the fact that we moved away from that, we do not have today unfiltered customer feedback in the omnichannel environment, and it is missing. And half the retailers do not lead with the customer perspective. So that's a little bit concerning. But let's look at how are retailers planning to enhance customer experience management across channels. This is important to understand. The first and foremost, retailers believe they need to act airline-like. So just as in the airline industry and in many other consumer industries, there is this notion of responding immediately to customer inquiries, especially when you know that your customers, your irate customers, could be on Facebook, could be on Twitter, tweeting very quickly about a negative experience. And airlines have figured out, for at least to some measure, hotels and airlines, that if you respond quickly, you can not only win, you can not only make that customer happy, but you can also perhaps retain them. And that's the research that these industries have done and found some good results. So retailers are figuring out that immediate response to customer queries is critical. VIP and loyalty programs. So loyalty programs can no longer be just physical card loyalty. They have to evolve from physical loyalty to digital loyalty. And that means accepting that your card-based point-of-sale loyalty programs have to evolve. And it's not just about embracing mobile wallets, but building a comprehensive physical to digital loyalty strategy. Number three, visibility of customer interactions. This is a very big problem in retail still across many retailers, that employees do not have visibility towards customer data the same way that some of the frontline employees might have access to some CRM data or loyalty data. The headquarter teams may have more deeper insights than the store teams sometimes. And people want to be able to create a level playing field when it comes to visibility of customer interactions, customer relationship data, and that's pretty important. So these are some of the ways that people are building a comprehensive strategy to bring the voice of the customer to the top. Let's look at the next key point that I want to share with you, that ultimately a strategy is as good as it can be, but it's the technology that is the enabler, right? So how do you build a truly omni-channel customer, voice of the customer led experience model, right? So when you think about omni-channel customers, how do you take that to the next level? What are companies thinking about from a technology perspective? So here are some disruptive technologies that retailers believe can make a difference. And I do believe that they're on to something. Number one, real-time availability of customer data with store employees. Extremely critical for over a third of companies. They rely on this for creating the next democratized retail environment. Mobile and digital wallets. So it's not just about embracing Apple Pay or any other digital wallet out there. It's about creating a comprehensive digital wallet strategy, which includes loyalty, which includes other aspects of offers and real-time offers and maybe even coupon and other types of methodologies within the wallet, right? And if you look at Amazon Go, what they've just announced in consumers walking into stores and walking out even without a point-of-sale system, it cannot be possible without a digital wallet, folks. So that's what Amazon is using. They're not only using machine learning and algorithms and very high-powered cameras in the store, but they're using a very sophisticated digital wallet, which is QR code based. So that's very important to think about. Number three is prescriptive analytics. I think that predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics are two sides of the same coin. And if you really think about, how human behavior will interact with machine behavior collectively to provide the best advice to your customers. It's a combination of prescriptive and predictive, which is very important for companies, and mobile payments. And there's a tie for the third place in terms of technologies, with mobile payments evolving towards beyond NFC and now towards QR code-based payments. And especially in countries in APAC, countries where they want to move towards a cashless economy, these are powerful cashless mobile payment systems available. In the US, we will see within the span of the next 2 years, mobile payments is going to improve gradually. But I think where a focus needs to be brought in is that if retailers are going to have their own mobile payment system, such as Walmart Pay, such as CVS Pay, Kohl's Pay, and the examples like Starbucks, then there need to be a greater standardization so mid-sized retailer and smaller retailers can have similar standards in place. Smart contact centers, that's a big technology area, important technology area. And what smart contact centers really mean is the combination of hybrid human and artificial intelligence. Good example is 1-800-Flowers. They're using both human touch as well as artificial intelligence for creating the best experience, a concierge-like experience where the AI tool is asking the customers online what are they looking for, and then the interaction actually leads to building a very prescriptive option for them, with which is complete with all the offers and all the cross-selling and upselling. So they are doing a great job. REI is doing a great job there too. So let's come to the critical challenge. Why has omnichannel still not been as profitable as retailers want it to be? So this is an interesting one, because with all the talk about omni everything, the fact is, I was making a point earlier that stores are still, I'm going to be sharing some statistic with you, which is very interesting. It's going to dispel everything about the people who had written obituaries about stores. The fact is that when you think about omni-channel delivery models today, 7 out of 10 orders are still being delivered and managed through your traditional DCs, right? It could be your store DC, it could be your online DC, it could be a combination store and online. Number 2, about a little over half the orders are being now fulfilled through BOPUS, buy online, pick up in the store. There's a good reason for that, and we'll see that on the next slide. And the third highest delivery model, favorite delivery model, is buy online and direct drop shipment or drop ship from the vendor, right? And for obvious reasons, cost being one of them. And let's look at, if these are the capabilities that we are seeing in front of us as far as omni-channel fulfillment and delivery options, let's look at profitability. Where do these capabilities stand in terms of profitability? So what we found through our survey of close to 150 retailers, many of them top tier retailers, is that you can have all the fulfillment nodes, but most of the fulfillment nodes that are in the new age are quite questionable in terms of profitability. The fact that people had written obituaries about the store, the fact that people are questioning that you do not need to fulfill from the store, they need to rethink, because store sales and stores are still the most profitable for the retailer among all the different fulfillment models, right? And as a center of excellence for sales, service, and fulfillment, it is the channel that is proving to be more profitable for retailers, right? What is really interesting is the box that you see in the lower half of this chart. Whether it is reserve online, pick up and pay in store, buy online, deliver from store, buy online using a third-party service like Instacart in grocery, buy online, pick up in locker, like the locker service that we've seen being used at 7-Eleven and others. these are very unprofitable, and they've not been figured out entirely in terms of the process management, the technology, and the overall value chain efficiency models. That should be very, very, very startling for many companies. So it's significantly unprofitable to be doing the last four that you see in a box on the screen, and much more profitable when you do the top four: store sales, BOPUS, buy online, deliver from distribution, your traditional DC-based fulfillment, and vendor dropship. Okay, so those are the most profitable means today in terms of serving the omnichannel customer from a order management, delivery, and fulfillment. So then comes the question: why do you reduce friction for your customers? So the obvious one is that we want to reduce friction because we want a sustainable business value prop. We want a sustainable business. The bar that has been created by the likes of the customer loyalty bar that has been created by the likes of Uber, Starbucks, Apple, right? We want to be there, right? We want an easy model where customers understand the omnichannel value proposition. But for the most part, omnichannel complexity has increased many, many times over the last few years. What you see in blue are all the channels that have been developed in the last 15, maybe 20 years, since the mid-90s, right? But just imagine that even when you saw Amazon for the first time in the mid-90s to where it has come to today, right? And all the investment in stores, big box stores, small box concepts, express stores, e-commerce, on-demand e-commerce, mobile apps, contact centers, both human and AI driven now, mobile wallets, mobile apps, social commerce, and social buy buttons, where social is now evolving to as a true commerce model. We've all seen that today, but the complexity has just increased several fold. And a lot of the complexity has to do with organization, process, and technology. So where does retail evolve from here? So far what we've seen is this notion that retailers across the globe and here at home want to create a frictionless commerce experience. But where I believe and where we believe that the industry is headed is towards this phase of infinite commerce. And what that really means is that many of the channels in this omni everything wave may not be part of the next trigger, but may be part of something bigger as it evolves. Because we are going to evolve as much as the customers want to shop and the way the customers want to shop, right? So we as customers are going to drive this phase of the boxes in green, which is infinite commerce, which is subscription and on-demand retailing. A lot of subscription concepts have come about in categories that we couldn't even think about. Something as small as even shaving. Hyper-personalization. The extent of personalization that we've been talking about when it comes to creating unique experiences and concierge like one-on-one advisor type of experiences, right? Augmented reality. So just imagine that sitting at your home and you can visit your favorite store in a AR type of environment, in a VR type of environment without even visiting the store and completing the overall experience and transaction. If you were out of time and you were perhaps traveling. Predictive pricing. So just imagine jet.com on steroids, right? Where the retailer is able to determine the pricing preferences by geography, by local neighborhood, by local store, and can offer dynamic pricing. Predictive fulfillment, where it's already happening, predictive fulfillment, where organizations are asking consumers to tell them about when they would prefer to get replenished for their favorite cartridges, ink cartridges, paper, office supplies, general merchandise, home goods. And they get, the predictor takes that data and puts that into motion, into automation, and the consumer receives the cartridges 2 months down the lane. and their card debited or credited accordingly. And the very important space of human and AI concierge, I think it's going to be, it's the Amazon Echo of the world, right? That's a good example. It's the series of the world, right? Is where we'll see evolution, where branded concierge services will emerge for every retailer. And I think it's going to be troublesome for the customer to figure out how to use it, when to use it. But I think it's going to be the wit and the ability of the retailer to be able to advise the customer on how these things are going to work. And that's going to be the part of the challenge is how do we take the consumer along? How do we walk with them? How do we crawl, walk, run with them? And that's going to be the challenge for retail is to catch up to that. So how best to change the status quo? So 5 things I want to leave you with. Number 1, absolutely pertinent that for people who had thought that Amazon was done in terms of its innovation in deep customer analytics, predictive modeling, instant shopping carts, a lot of their innovation around Hadoop. They were just pleasantly surprised when they saw the Amazon Go concept and the fact that Amazon has plans to launch 2,000 grocery stores very soon, right? Why do they want that is going back to the point that I was trying to make is that store sales are your most profitable asset. You want that in your portfolio. You want that as a retailer. You just need to make sure that the obsolescence of the store catches up and it is refreshed for winning the hearts and minds of the customers, and that the associates are fresh and knowledgeable. Now, including Amazon and some of the new retailing models in your analysis is critical. Number 2, to invest more and more, as much as you can, in the last mile partner fulfillment models and to measure the cost per order. Our data shows that an average retailer today, omnichannel retailer, spends 20 cents to $1 in terms of order to fulfillment per order, cost per order. That's a lot. How do you bring down that cost? Going back to the chart that I showed you earlier. How do you make it more profitable? How do you make digital more profitable is a big question. And fulfillment is one answer, one sure answer. Number 3, reinvestment. Very critical that it's not just your stores that require reinvestment, it's your commerce platform. What our data shows is that in e-commerce, the average age is already 7+ years. In point of sale, average age is 8 years. Many systems are older than 10, 12, 15 years. They are not catching up. And that poses a lot of problem. There are applications that do not require you to change your commerce platform and point of sale. They can still work alongside. But keep in mind that that adds complexity to your architecture. It adds more technical complexity that you do not want to handle. Because IT today is about decentralization. It's about enabling digital transformation, not making it more complex. Number 4 is to think about that you do not want to invest perhaps in, you don't want to, as a retailer, you perhaps don't want to make an investment in the Silicon Valley or MIT, close to MIT, starting a physical lab, right? Innovation lab. You don't need to if you don't need to, right? What you can do is start a virtual lab. You can start virtual commerce innovation by making small and decisive investments in technologies that can be aiding the future customer experience, i.e. smart bots, machine learning, AI, AR, VR, robotics. All these concepts can soon be brought into your stores. That should be the belief. And that has to be the ecosystem formation point for innovation in a retail environment. It's critical. It's not just the job of technologists anymore. Retail is about innovation. Number 5 and final, dynamic retailing is evolving. It's not just about the 4 Ps. right, anymore. It's about the 4 Ps and the customer. How do you build and bring back the customer to be the center focal point of your omni-channel strategy? And that there is a way to listen to your customer in an unfiltered way. How does the CEO get access? How does the board get access? How do the SVPs get access? How do the director level folks get access? How do the managers get access? How do the associates in the stores get access to unfiltered customer feedback, customer data, customer excellence related KPIs? And that is what is going to shape the next wave of retail and the next trigger of innovation in retail. I'll leave you with those thoughts, hand it back over to Tad to wrap it up.
Sahir, you don't get off that easy. We do have a couple minutes for questions, so if folks want to put anything in the Q&A box, go ahead. But Sahir, I'd like to lead off with one question. On the chart where the executives were mentioning the customer experience improvement opportunities, responding immediately to customer queries was number one. The question I have is, how immediate is immediate, or how real time is real time? The reason I ask is, in e-com, if your page loads take longer than sub-second, you'll see defection from finishing a transaction. In the contact center space, if the phone is not answered in 20 or 30 seconds, you'll see people defect. You go the other end of the spectrum, some sellers on Amazon have a 24-hour SLA for responding to emails. As channels converge, as modes of communication converge, how fast is fast enough? Or what the flip side of that is, how slow is too slow?
Yeah, it's not fast enough, right? And you know, to be honest with you, what social has done is that it's broken those barriers, right? So you can see data in real time in terms of a customer feedback, negative or positive, and you can respond to it if you put the right resources towards it. Problem is that companies don't put resources towards it because it's not looked at as a revenue making entity, right? But make no mistake that this has more revenue impact than anything else. Your voice in the consumer space has more legs than anything else. So how do we get to this real-time environment is the big question. And it's an important one. What companies can do is they can start with more real-time computing of customer data, right? You can do that in different ways, but one of the sure ways of doing it is to create multiple personas of your customers, to interlink all the messaging platforms, the connected messaging platforms of your brand, right, have to be interconnected into a master customer, segmented customer persona repository where data is like an interchange. It's in a real-time interchange model. Now, this is not fact. It's not something which is too far out, because companies are already doing that. Walmart is already doing that today. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about it in the open, but they're already doing that today. They have a very advanced customer repository of data so that they can respond to customer insights organization-wide very quickly, right? But they're also taking steps. Many other companies that are taking steps. It's like that whole crawl, walk, run methodology, but that's one of the ways you can do it.
Got it. So one more quick question. On the profitability chart, the question immediately sprang to mind for me was, are the scenarios that are low profit, is that because the process has not been figured out, or there's not economies of scale yet, or is it something else? What do you think are the best hypotheses for why those scenarios are not profitable? Is it simple ignorance, or is there something deeper that's going to be harder to solve?
Well, I think it's not ignorance. I think it's a learning curve, right? For companies, they it's like my neighbor is doing it, let me follow the neighbor, right? They bought the best car, let's follow that, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's that type of analogy, the best way to explain it, to be honest. I think the time and investment that one needs to make in order to understand different fulfillment nodes, what impact can they have on your store infrastructure, on your DC infrastructure, on your time to fulfillment, time to market, cost per order. All these things are figured out after you've already launched the program, because the teams are under such pressure that I'll give you a good example. This is actually based in true stories, right? I was talking to a very large consumer electronics gaming type of retailer. They introduced fulfillment from the store about a few months back, but they hadn't really thought out how what is going to be the impact in terms of cost implications, in terms of the different APIs they need to develop to connect the technology with all their logistics and fulfillment partners. They didn't think about the impact on the stores in terms of the associates who are already overburdened with too many tasks, and that can their associates then handle an additional fulfillment task of pick, pack, ship in the store. So what happens is, for these type of executives, mid-level managers, they're not at fault. It's the top level folks who've not really thought about it, right? And they just hand over a portfolio to these mid-level managers who need to go figure it out. And these are the folks that are running pillar to post, trying to get answers on things that should have been well thought out in advance. So that's one issue that we see. The other issue that we see is organizational readiness, right? Job roles that have not been picked for their understanding regarding the science of fulfillment and order management, right? How do you build the right fulfillment nodes, and how do you eliminate a node when it is actually adding a lot of cost, right? I'll give you a good example. A Fortune 100 retailer that I was talking to, I'm not going to name them, they found that one of their drop shipment partners adding a lot of additional cost to their per order because it is a high selling category. They were given free leeway, this supplier or the group of suppliers were given free leeway to do the packaging and put everything in boxes to do the drop shipment. But what the retailer didn't understand is how much money they were incurring per box, per carton, in terms of and the impact on cost per order. So they had to revisit that, and they as a result they saved hundreds, literally tens of millions of dollars, right? Because they renegotiated, reworked that entire model with this group of suppliers or with this particular supplier, right? So that's another example, Ted. Hopefully that helps.
Yep. Last quick question before we wrap. For retail and for e-com, if there's one company to watch over the next 12 to 18 months who's doing it right from a service standpoint, from a fulfillment standpoint, experience standpoint, who is it? And you can't say Amazon.
Yeah, that's simple. Look, I think that there are companies that are doing literally a phenomenal job in managing their entire online digital value chain in that in making it sure that it's as profitable as it can be. There are a lot of opportunities for them, but I would say a few that come to mind. I think that companies like I would say companies like Staples, I would say not on the overall side, but at least on the B2B side, doing a great job still. Companies like Macy's, I would say they are doing a pretty good job. In the new age companies, I would say there are examples like, for instance, the Adore Me's of the world, right? And also companies like Under Armour, right? Lululemon, Athletica, right, is another example. All these companies, REI, right? I would say these would be my go-to companies to understand what type of modeling that they are doing to really make digital profitable, or at least more profitable than it can be under the circumstances. Because all these companies face their own sets of challenges, and they face challenges in terms of fulfillment nodes not being profitable. They have customer experience challenges from time to time. They've not refreshed their categories as fast as they can. I think in the hardline segment, Tad, I would give a lot of points to Home Depot. Only because I think they've come a long ways. They've improved dramatically in terms of the serviceability and keeping the customer in mind when it comes to running their omnichannel strategy. And the whole operation model has become a lot better at Home Depot. So that's another example that I can say. One last thing I would like to mention is a hidden gem, company called Children's Place. Hidden gem, very, very nice company. It needs to be looked at closely what they're doing. They're doing something right. They're doing something right in terms of their ability to connect with their customer. And it's not just a category, right? They're doing something exceedingly well, which the other companies can learn from. Ulta Beauty is another one.
Yeah.
These are some examples that I can come up with.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about Children's Place, so I'm going to have to investigate that. That may be our next webinar topic. But definitely agree with you. Home Depot and Ulta in particular, absolutely tearing up the category. So Sahir, I thank you for dropping some knowledge on us. Personally, I think the voice of the customer, or the lack of it that's entertained, is a big eye opener for me. And also, frankly, the lack of profitability on some of those fulfillment nodes. If we had to spend 60 minutes on one chart, I think that one chart would be the thing, because it's so clear that omnichannel is the path forward, and it's also a dangerous and potentially unprofitable path across some of those nodes. I want to thank you, Sahir, and also for the attendees. We appreciate everybody stopping by. We hope it's been worthwhile. We will be offering a replay and also a summary of this. So if there's any content that you're interested in obtaining, or additional discussion, you can reach us through the same channels that you registered for the webinar. You also have our contact information. If you want to reach me directly, I'm T. Wilson at Arise. So it's TWILSON at arise.com. And I'd be happy to share more information with you. So again, thanks to our participants. Thank you, Sahir. And that concludes our webinar.